Okay, so when I say Melbourne, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? I bet you it's not scuba diving or snorkeling. When I moved here about 10 years ago, I was absolutely stunned by how many places there were right around the corner in the city to go snorkeling, scuba diving, free diving. Like, honestly, when I moved here, I didn't think that that would be a possibility. Today, I want to talk to you about one spot in particular that is about 40 minutes away from the city, teeming with wildlife, for you to check out in your next visit. Hi, my name is Lou and I'm a certified freediver and scuba diver living in Melbourne. Over the last 10 years, I've set myself a mission to go out and explore and find the best snorkeling spots in and around Melbourne. And I think the one that I'm going to be talking about today is probably a usual suspect and not a big secret. But still, if you're new to the snorkeling scene, maybe you don't know about it. If you're looking for the best snorkeling spot around Melbourne, I think this is definitely one that you should check out. So today we're going to be talking about Ricketts Point. Ricketts Point is located in Biomari, on the eastern edge of Port Phillip Bay. So what makes Ricketts Point so unique? Well, since 2002, the whole area has been declared a marine sanctuary, which means essentially it's protected from fishing, which has allowed the local wildlife to flourish. So the beautiful thing about Ricketts Point is that you're going to see way more fish and local fauna and flora than you would in other parts around Port Phillip Bay. The other thing that sets it apart is, particularly for beginners, because it's located within Port Phillip Bay, it's quite a protected area from strong winds, for example, which means water is usually quite clear and also quite still and shallow. So it makes it really accessible for people that are just starting out in their journey, and accessible also in the sense that it's not ridiculously far away from where most people live, or even if you are coming to visit Melbourne, it's not like, a whole day trip to get there. And this is also a great place to start out snorkeling because it's not as remote as other locations can be. So you do have toilets, you do have a cafe, you do have showers where you can rinse off after you come out. So it's quite accessible in terms of facilities. And again, there is parking close by. The wildlife that you can expect to see, you can expect to see sometimes a lot of leather jackets. You can expect to see loads of toadfish, potentially Australian salmon, potentially dolphins, eagle rays, sometimes smooth rays, lots of zebra fish as well, Port Jackson sharks, those are probably some of people's favorites, banjo sharks or fiddle rays as well, among many, many more. It's about a 40-minute drive from the CBD or central Melbourne. And if you don't have a car, you can actually take down the Sandringham line and then catch either the 600 or 923 bus down to the reserve. There's plenty of parking available. If you want to park right next to essentially where you go into the ocean, it is paid parking and it can be quite pricey. But if you look at the streets that run perpendicular to the beach, you'll find plenty of parking there. So it's just a matter of like going out and looking for it a bit. So what can you expect when you get there? Ricketts Point is actually quite big, which is also really cool because it means that you can keep going back to it and finding out and discovering new parts of the marine sanctuary. So once you get there, there's essentially several parts of the marine sanctuary that you can explore. Up to the north, you have Quiet Corner, which is actually called that way because, number one, that's not where most people go to, so it tends to be quite uncrowded. And it's also called Quiet Corner because when there's a little bit of wind, that area tends to be a bit more protected. So if in doubt, that's a good place to go where likely visibility will be better. Then if you go down to kind of the center of it, you have Tea House Reef, which is actually probably the most popular part to snorkel in. There's even a little cafe that you can, like, after the beautiful snorkeling session, come out and have brunch. And that's probably where there's like a lot of wildlife in and about. And then to the south, you have the North Arm Reef and South Triangle Reef and Table Rock. Now, between the locals, there's also other kind of like added names throughout. So you have Shark Alley, for example, which is kind of like more towards the north of the sanctuary. And you guessed it, it's called Shark Alley because there's a lot of sharks, but breathe easy, it's not like great whites or bronze whalers or anything like that. It's actually these lovely locals called Port Jackson sharks that are so ridiculously cute. So if you go on any given day, well, not any given day, but if you're lucky, you can see them just having a nice nap because they're mostly nocturnal. So you can see them just conglomerated in Shark Alley having a nice nap, and you can swim and say hi. The kind of like tea house reef area is also aptly called fishbowl because there's a lot of fish, and it's actually perfect for beginners. You'll spot a lot of schools of juvenile fish. You can spot some wrasse, some rays, some very colorful algae. Because it's in the shallower part of the reef, it's better explored at high tide. Otherwise, if you try to get in there at low tide, you might just like beach yourself because it's so low. So definitely try to check it out at high tide. But it's still nice and easy to get in and out of. So there's like no big risks if you're just starting out in your journey. So you can get right nice up and close with a lot of the friendly locals that live around the area. I'm meaning fish again. But if you keep swimming out to the markers of the marine sanctuary, again, be careful with boats. If you don't go past the markers, just stay in the protected area. But if you go all the way past to the markers, it can get down to maybe 8-10 meters deep. And the beautiful thing about this part, like, I guess like if you're looking for vibrant colors, you're better off staying more towards the shallows because that's where you really see the contrast of the different type of algae and coral in the reef. And again, you can get to see wildlife up close. But if you are a confident swimmer and you go towards the marker, then you do get a chance to see larger banks of fish. There's sometimes this huge bank of Australian salmon that visit this area, and they're just like circling you around, and it's just like amazing. And you can even get to see things like eagle rays, or even dolphins have been known to visit the sanctuary. So you do get a chance to see a bit more bigger fauna. I guess the question then is, where do you start if it's so big? Look, if you're just starting out and are a beginner, I would definitely suggest you visiting Fishbowl. So you can go in through the Biodiverse Yacht Club. It's a good place to start off, and you can kind of like go in and then take a left and snorkel through the fishbowl area, and then you can loop back along the reef edge, which will take you out on the kind of like other side of fishbowl, and just in time for you to have a nice coffee at the cafe. If you're a bit more of an intermediate snorkeler, I would advise maybe starting off the same point, but going all the way out to the marker and going to visit Shark Alley. That's a pretty nice area to look at. And then yeah, just maybe exploring a bit more of the outer reef before going back in and looking at Fishbowl and coming out the same way into the cafe. And if you're like super advanced, you can try to do the whole thing in one day. I don't know. You set your own goals. But honestly, it's a lovely spot that if you like wildlife, or like regardless of your ability, you'll enjoy because there's so much to see. Now, because it's a marine sanctuary, please bear in mind you should not be touching or taking anything with you. So the fact that it's a marine sanctuary doesn't just mean no fishing allowed, it also means do not take a starfish or a shellfish or touch the coral or try to pat a fish. Like just look, but don't touch, essentially. And that's just essentially a good rule of thumb for wherever you go when you're snorkeling. Fish are friends, but you wouldn't just like go around just touching people. Same goes for fish. They won't like you, and it's not good manners. In terms of best times and conditions, definitely look for high tide because the area is quite shallow. So you want to be able to go in and out and not beach yourself against the reef. So best done at high tide. And easterly winds are the best, or no winds. Definitely, and then this is a good rule of thumb in general, but because it's in the bay, wait for a while, wait at least for a few days, and preferably up to a week after it's been raining, because there's a lot of water that goes out, like comes from the rivers into the bay, so visibility tends to be quite impacted if there's been rain recently in the area. Other things I would consider is, because the reef is essentially like right there next to the beach, there can be like pointy plants, urchins, and objects that can hurt your feet. So I would consider using fins that are like the ones that you strap onto a boot, and having like boots to go in and out of the reef, rather than just the slip-in fins. Or if you're gonna use slip-ins, just try to go in with your fins from the get-go, because if you go barefoot, you can potentially hurt your feet because there's a lot of like coral and sharp things that can hurt you. If you're heading out deeper, I would consider bringing a dive flag with you just in case. Again, boats are not meant to come into this area, but it's always good for safety, especially if you're going to be going all the way out to the marker. Boats might be diving close by, so just for people to be able to spot you. So look, let me know how you go, and if you like Ricketts Point when you do go there. For the lovely locals that I'm sure frequent the place quite a bit, let me know if I missed anything, because I've been to Ricketts Point I think like 5 times, but I know that there's people that go there like every single weekend, so please add in the comments below what your favorite spots are and if there are any routes that you would recommend others to consider. And I hope that you go out to Ricketts Point and like just enjoy the snorkeling that Melbourne has to offer, because honestly, it's a unique environment that more people should know about. See you next time.